Hi guys, welcome to Azure Content. This is part 16 in Mapping Dataflow Scenarios playlist. In this video, we are going to learn how to match error codes to an error message using cached lookup in Mapping Dataflow. So let's see what our requirement is. So in this video, we are going to learn how to determine matching error message present in different source code to an error code using cached lookup in Mapping Dataflow. Okay. So let's understand the use case with the help of images. So these are actually the two source data. So we have two Excel sheet. One is having just the error codes and a blank column called type of error. Okay. And the other Excel sheet is having three columns. One is error code, then error message and description of that message. Okay. So our requirement is to load this source data into SQL table. But before loading the data, we have to perform few tasks. First thing is we need to determine what is the matching error message for each of the rows or each of the error codes present in this source data. And then on top of this error message, we need to determine what is the type of error. Okay, and then we need to load the same in SQL table. So either the error message is of syntax error type or it is a runtime error. Okay, on the basis of what we are going to determine that. So if the error message is having invalid as the starting string, then it means it is a syntax error. If you read through the description, it will make sense why it is a syntax error. So suppose the error message is invalid credential, which means the user has not provided the user ID and password correctly. Okay. If it is invalid configuration, it means the user has done something wrong in the staging configuration. Okay, so there can be lots of error messages, but I am just taking few as an example for our use case. So if it is a invalid data type, it means the user has not provided correct data type. If the file format is invalid, it means we have to provide the correct file format. Okay, so these kinds of error are called syntax error, which means something is wrong from the user end. Okay. But if the error message says something like out of memory error or internal server error, it means it is a runtime error. Okay, so user can't do anything about it. So we are just segregating error messages into two parts. Okay, so if these two tables would be a SQL table and we had to achieve the same requirement using SQL Server code, then we could have written a query to join these two tables on the basis of error code, and then we could have gotten these error messages in this table, and we could have written some case statement, and we could have gotten this type of error column values, right? So same thing we need to achieve using dataflow, but here we will make use of something called cached lookup. Okay, so let's start creating the dataflow. Okay, yeah, so I have loaded my data in my ADLS account. There are two files here. You can see error code, which is an Excel file, and error message. Okay, this is also an Excel file. So we need to use these two files to as the source data, and then we need to load it into the SQL table using some transformation. Okay, so let me create a new data flow, and let me turn on this data flow debug option so that we can preview the data during the runtime. Meanwhile, let me add a source transformation here. As we have two sources, let me add the source 2 as well. So for the first source, let me create a new data set pointing to the first Excel sheet, which is present in my ADLS Gen 2 account. Okay, so our data flow cluster is ready. Now let me choose the file which is present in Anu demo folder. So the first source data is in errorcodes.xls, and here let me select the sheet 1 as the sheet name. Yeah, and let me select first row as header, and import schema is already selected. Let me hit on OK. Yeah, so our data set is ready for the first source data. Now for second source, let me create another data set pointing to the same folder. Let me choose the link service, and let me select the file here. For this one as well, the sheet is sheet 1. Let me select first row as header. So our second data set is also ready. So let's preview the data one by one. So the data for first Excel sheet is visible, Similarly for second one, let me preview the data once. Yeah, so you can see the data is visible. Now as we discussed, we want to perform join between these two sources, right? So there are few options that we can consider. One is this join transformation, where we have an option to perform any kind of join between two sources. Okay. Then there is a lookup transformation, which actually does left outer join, okay, based on some matching condition. Okay. So for this use case, we can also consider to use lookup transformation or join transformation to achieve our requirement. But suppose in case you want to do multiple lookups on the same source, which means if you are performing some derived column transformation on top of this lookup, and then there are some other transformations as well, suppose pivot, then again you want to look up on the values present in the source, then you have to use another lookup transformations, right? So in this use case, when you have to perform multiple lookups, then the best approach is to use cached lookup. Okay. So in our use case, we are not having such a requirement, but still I will try to use cached lookup so that we can be more familiar with that concept, and in our upcoming videos we will try to make use of these transformations as well, that is lookup and join transformation. So when we say cached lookup, it means that we will be able to store the data in Spark cache memory. We have talked about this in our previous video as well, where we used cached sync to check the maximum value of a source column, and there we have used outputs function. Okay. So please watch that video as well before watching this video. So we need to make use of cached lookup or cached sync. Okay, so here let me add a sync transformation, and as we discussed, we want to use cached sync. Okay, so here in sync type we need to select this cache option. Okay, and in the settings we have an option to select the key columns. That means on the basis of which column we want to perform the match. Okay. So in our case, the column which is matching between the two sources is errorCode, right? So we will use errorCode as the key column to perform the match. Okay. So let me choose that, and let me preview the data here. Yeah, so the data is visible now. It is not actually getting stored in any of the data store, but it will be stored in the Spark cache memory as we have discussed. Okay. So now we can access these lookup values in writing expression in any of the transformations throughout the data flow. Okay. So here let me add a derived column transformation, because we want to make changes to the existing column called type of error, right? Here you can see we want to provide values in this column and load the same in SQL table. Okay. Let me start writing the expression here. So basically we have to determine if the error message is syntax error or runtime error. Okay. So for that we have to see if the error message has invalid as the starting value, then it will be a syntax error. Okay. So how to write that expression? So for this we will use if condition. Okay. And in the first argument we have to write the condition. So there is something called starts with. Okay. So I will make use of this function. On top of which column? On top of error message, right? So error message is not present in this source, so we need to get the values from the sync, right? So here I will make use of this cached lookup. So to write the expression, so let me select this sync, and it automatically added pound symbol here. Now we can use two functions here, either outputs or lookup. There are two functions available in cached sync. Okay, output or lookup, but in our case we need to look up through the values, right? So we will make use of lookup function, and here we need to provide the key column. So in our case, what is the key column? It is errorCode. Okay. Okay, so the same key value we need to specify inside lookup function. So here let me write errorCode. Okay. So now we are accessing the cached sync lookup values here, and this lookup value is having 3 columns, right? Let me check again in the sync. you can see error code, error message and description. So we need to check for error message if it contains invalid as the starting value or not, right? So here we will look for error message, okay. So if error message starts with what? Starts with invalid as the value, then it is a syntax error, and if it is not the case, then it will go inside false and it will return runtime error, okay. So this is how we are going to write the expression. Let me just preview data here. Let me maximize this. So you can see this is our input error code column and this is the output that it is fetching. Now you can see for all the columns it is giving runtime error and it is not giving the proper result that we expected here. It should give syntax error for 4 rows and for 2 rows it should give runtime error. So what mistake we did is, let me check the source. Here you can see the error message does not exactly starts with invalid. It starts with err and then hyphen then invalid. Let me clear this so that it will be more visible. So you can see err hyphen, we have to neglect this. So how can we do that? We can make use of substring function and we can just start checking the string after this value err hyphen, okay. So let me first minimize this, and here we will make use of substring function, okay, substring. So we have talked about this function in the first video of this playlist, okay. So please watch that if you want to know how this function works. So here we need to provide the string on top of which you need to do the substring, and then we need to provide the starting value of the index, okay, and then we need to provide how many numbers of characters you want to fetch. So here let me first select this substring function on top of this error message, and then we need to provide the starting value, right? So starting value is nothing but the 1 2 3 4 5 fifth value, okay, and then what is the number of character you want to fetch. So we are just bothered about the starting string. So we are not interested to get the value till the end. So I am just randomly giving 10 so that it will fetch up to 10 characters, okay. So let me refresh this now. Yeah, so now you can see it is giving syntax error for 4 rows and runtime error for the other 2 rows, okay. So we are good now. Let me save and finish, and let me preview data once again here, and let me compare it with the expected result. So you can see 4 records should have syntax error. So let's wait for that. Yeah, so the output is coming 2108 till 5400. So 2108 till 5400 it is syntax error, and the other 2 values, that is 9300 and 2500, is runtime error. So we are good, okay. So these 2 values are runtime error. So now let me add a sync transformation here, and let me select a SQL table because we need to load the data into SQL, right? Here you can see this should be a SQL table. So let me create a table called dbo.errorCode. Okay, so now let me go back, and now let me try to create a pipeline to run this data flow. Okay, so let me hit on debug, and let's wait for the data flow execution to complete. So the data flow execution is completed now. Let's go to the SQL database, and so let me write select star from dbo.errorCode, and let me run this query. So you can see the proper data is coming in the table, okay. So this is what we were expecting. So we have achieved this using cached lookup, okay. So so I hope you liked the content. So please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet. So please stay tuned. Thank you.